What's going on, y'all? Bud Elliott here. That's Chuck Blunt. That's not Lawrence-Stample. This is Nolecast coming to you at lunch on a Monday. What's going on, guys?
Not
Hey,
much.
they won.
Yeah, right. Wins
Better than a
win.
loss, man.
That's for sure.
So 34-14, Florida State takes care of business against Virginia Tech. Wasn't always pretty, not to go negative, but again, I don't know if we are in a real place to complain about a 20-point win necessarily, but also one thing I think we've always done on this show well for, what are we, 15 years now? Is look at the quality of play and not just a scoreboard. We'll get yelled at by fans sometimes for complaining about a win and not celebrating, but saying, hey, this loss wasn't really, that bad. Diving into this, there are some encouraging things, I think. Deuce Robinson, obviously, that continues to be awesome. Spamming Deuce is a hell of a strategy. 134 on 9 targets, guys. That is absolutely getting it done. I thought Tommy was okay. 12 of 24. He's not going to be a high completion percentage guy. We've said that really ever since the rumor of his name in the transfer portal, coming to you popped up. But 24 for 189 with no interceptions. I think you'll take that out of a guy, especially when you run the football 46 times. So, what do we take from this win?
I felt like the football gods gave you one that kind of owed you because you've lost games where you've out success rated opponents. And if you look at our friend Stats of War, Parker Fleming's, did we really get beat that bad chart? Vatek actually won the success rate battle. Vatek actually put up a 96 percentile success rate, but for a change, FSU won the critical, those scenarios that you have to win, because down to down doesn't always dictate if you're going to win. It's those in the red zone. Do we get timely stops? Do we get those turnovers? And that ultimately flipped the game in FSU's favor. Without those turnovers, who knows what this game really ends up looking like. So I felt like they were kind of owed one, because we've lost a lot of games this year where we were in Vatek's situation where we out success rated teams, but we came away with the loss, and you feel like, damn, we should have had that one. So it over the course of the season, things tend to balance out, and so this was one of the ones that was kind of owed to you, I feel like.
Yeah, this game, it's so tough to honestly talk about it because it's been such a rough season. But talking negatively about this game, I never walked away from this game feeling happy that we won. I was happy, I was happy that we did win, but I didn't feel any differently after the game than I did before it. Just watching the actual game just didn't. Oh, man, it sucks because even when we did have good plays and we were able to get off the field and do certain things, I was still in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that this is a really, really bad Virginia Tech team. That's the first thing I was thinking. And then second thing, I was like, why is this a 10-play drive on defense? Why can't we get off the field? There was multiple things like that. But at the end of the day, my first initial thought was I was happy that we were able to win. I love being able to see certain guys get after it. I talked about it on Twitter. I was happy to see guys get to certain milestones, which we're watching a couple of freshmen right now kind of dominate the game. So I'm happy watching that. And a win is a win. Period. So that's my initial thought before we get into it.
Bowl.
Bowl eligible, maybe.
Yeah.
Your favorite at NC State on Friday.
And it's probably a coin flip in Gainesville, to be honest. They're 3-7 for a reason. And that on paper, FSU should probably win and might even win by double digits if you go by paper. Now, we know the game is not played on paper, but there's a lot of things to suggest that FSU is a better football team than Florida. And so it isn't crazy to suggest they will win, even though we know how Norvell does on the road.
It was kind of weird. They had 11 plays that graded as explosive. You had 13. That's not really the differential I would expect to see in a 20-point win for a Gus offense. Obviously you ran, 71 plays. They ran 59. So their explosive play rate was almost identical to yours. When you also look at the success rate, that was certainly the game was probably played closer than a 20-point margin. Yeah. I think we would say, but if you're Mike and the staff, obviously you're extremely happy that you came out on the right side of that 20-point margin. Thought some of the young guys played pretty well. Honestly, if you want to kind of fast forward this thing to next year a little bit, that's encouraging, right? Tommy was pretty sharp. he may or may not be back. Obviously, Deuce, like the way he's trending, that Chroma was pretty damn good.
Danzy continues to have a flash play every now and again, or every game, it seems like.
Yeah, exactly. I was surprised the defense couldn't get off the field. No, I would agree with you on that for sure. The other young guys defensively, I mean, like Barker continues to make plays for you. Like you got some young guys that played. I thought like the Nasir twins were pretty decent. Like Lyons got in there and had some good snaps. It wasn't all bad.
No,
it's just. I think you'd feel better about the direction of this thing if the 20-point margin played out like a 20-point margin should play out.
Yeah.
Against a team with a zombie team, no head coach type thing. Again, we were pretty sure they really couldn't stop you very much, but like they outgained you on a per play basis, which is wild. And again, that turnover is kind of the difference, I guess. They didn't do much to affect your offense with their defensive line, though. I mean, 2 TFLs on the day, a couple pressures, but like not a ton. Like, do you upgrade this team after this performance, guys?
I wouldn't. I think NC State and Florida are bad football teams. I didn't like move them significantly in my power. They're just inside the top 30, which is pretty consistent across all the power rate. Like SP plus, FEI, FPI all tend to consider this a top 30 team. I didn't adjust them significantly though, but I do think they're multiple points better than NC State, and on a neutral field at minimum, I would have them favored against Florida. Probably not when you factor for home field, though.
NC State Miami was wild. I mean, NC State had 78 yards through 3 quarters.
They're not a good football team.
Started off well.
If they wouldn't have upset Georgia Tech, they'd be coming in on like a 5 or 6 game losing streak for this game.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They've
lost 5 of their last 7, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, and also like who they've beaten is like the bottom of the ACC is
so bad,
dreadful this year. Yeah, like Georgia Tech is the 88th rated strength of schedule so far.
They've beaten Georgia Tech and Campbell if you go back to week 4, and they have losses to Duke, Vatech, Notre Dame, Pitt, and Miami.
Yeah, and 3 of their last 4 games they have lost by 34, 19, and 29.
Now, my biggest issue, what I'm scared of the most is, all right, so let's ask this question. Do we beat Virginia Tech the same way that we played? Do we beat them on the road?
Probably. I mean, post-game win expectancy was 96.8. Like, statistically, you outperformed them except for the whole success rate battle. Like, you hit more explosive.
But let's watch the game. As far as watching the game, we are a momentum-based team. I went to this game, and I haven't been. I think I went early in the season, but I went to this game. I watched this game. I don't know if we're able to bounce. At first, I don't know if we're able to get off the field a couple of times that we probably needed to. I think we possibly break a couple of the times that we bend and we didn't. And some of the shifts in momentum, I don't know if we actually take them. Jalen Lucas was a way bigger factor than I think people really understand because of the momentum. Yeah. Those 2 punt returns, the stadium was lit, right? Everyone is fired up. It was a good showing for a game that is 2 kind of weaker opponents, and it really changed the course of the game by him being able to make some of those explosive plays. But I just don't, and that's the gut feeling that I have, and that sucks. I'm a very optimistic person, but watching this game, I'm like, I don't know if we pull this out on the road. I just don't think that we beat them on the road the way that we played at home.
History suggests that your gut is the right feeling, right? Because it has been the problem in a lot of the road games the last 2 years is they don't make that momentum shifting play that swings the game in their favor. When that opportunity presents itself, they typically let it go the other way when it's on the road. So, I mean, it's not crazy to suggest that they could have lost, but also you have to wonder what kind of environment Lane Stadium would be given what a zombie team this is. Like, it could have been like playing in the indoor facility. It could have been dead. Like, you just never know.
That's kind of just my thought process as far as what my thoughts are on the game.
I would also say that going into this NC State game, when we've been bad, we've actually done better at NC State, it feels like, than when we're good. Like, if that makes any sense. Like
they crush your
2010 and
dreams.
2012, they crush our dreams, right? But like we went there, I think it was 06 and 0 or 06 we lost, but 08 we went in there and we weren't, they were like a 3-loss team, and it was a Thursday night, and I think Burt Reed had a big punt return, but we won it was an awkward game coming off that Miami game down in South Florida, and they actually won, right? But it's not the good teams that go in there and win. It's typically the middling team. So we'll see what the environment is. That's a bad football team, though, and that's what I keep coming back to, that we see enough from this FSU team that if they just show up and play, they should beat NC State. They just should. That's just not a very good – we're not a great football team, but I don't think we're a bad football team. I think we are bad situationally, but I don't think they're actually a bad football team as a whole.
They do have a way to – NC State has a way of rising up on defense at home in these primetime games. I'm not really sure why. Like the last year, 2 years ago, Louisville went in there. Louisville, that was the year
last year
played for the AC championship game, and was it 2023 Friday night game, right, or Thursday night game? I think Friday.
I thought they went there last year and lost. Actually,
did they? Because it was like a 13-10 crazy low scoring game where NC State had not been playing all that well on defense. They just all of a sudden rose up and just got a bunch of like interceptions off that Louisville game, much like you did to him in the conference championship game,
right?
That year. Yeah, I shoot. I mean, I don't think you can trust this team on the road, like at all, based on
we haven't won. Yeah, we haven't won. Yeah, So one of my best friends pointed out, which I noticed, but it really made sense when he talked about it. The offsides call we got in the red zone that allowed us to be able to keep the drive going and score could be the difference in that game. Like that allowed us to create enough momentum for our guys to really be able to buy in. I think for us to have enough gas in the tank for us to really kind of put it on them. If we have to settle for a field goal, let's say we possibly even miss that field goal, it's a different game. So another thing that I noticed, especially being in person at this game, was if we start in the second half, Chroma runs the ball on first down. If we're able to get a good chunk yardage, or even as a good first down, like a good first down run, 8 yards, 7 yards on first down to start the drive, and we jump on them, we typically convert, we typically do a good job, and we sometimes can get into the end zone. But what happens is if we're not consistent in keeping the pace and keeping the foot on the gas, and we have any sort of hold, whether it's a holding, whether it's anything at all, it derails the entire drive. There is no way you can win consistently when that is the case, because we're talking about football where there's multiple things that are happening. But anytime we get going and we can continue to get going and stay going, then we typically can convert. But it's just, I don't know how you as an offensive coordinator can actually see that in real time and know that and still have confidence in it. It's just, that's what I noticed.
Of course, I feel like those issues you can apply to probably 70% of college football. Like this is just, the elites don't deal with it, and that's why they're elite. And then the really bad teams don't have this. But a lot of college football lives in this chunk where it's one or two plays midway through a game that if it goes one way or the other, that likely dictates your outcome. So I don't think we're alone or it's unique to FSU. It's just what we are right now, right? Like when you don't have a foundation and you're relying on guys that are 1-year rentals, things can sway in the course of a one football game. And that's what every game is its own entity, and it's hard to build momentum off of it for a lot of teams. Like it's just not a unique issue to FSU, unfortunately. It's just what happens when you're a middling football team.
Well, I think that kind of just gets back to like, okay, this is year 6.
Mm-hmm.
You've been spending a lot of money on this roster, and you're not even back to a top 25 level. Like if you're doing it right, this game should like legitimately be no sweat.
Right.
And a 20-point win says that it wasn't a sweat. But if you watch the ball game, like you guys did, obviously now I was there. There were definitely sweaty times.
Mm-hmm.
And like Vatek is, like we talked about, they're not Stanford bad, but for where you are right now, it's a game you could lose if you play like crap, which you didn't, right? Like they didn't play bad. They just didn't play like to the standard that I think we are still committed to holding Florida State football to. You know, and like maybe while you're in the ACC, the standard does not like be Ohio State, right? But I think it's certainly like play at a top 25 level is pretty much non-negotiable. You know, and I don't think they're that.
No,
you know, right now. And it's like, what's the real hope for the future on this team?
I guess if you were playing devil's advocate, you could go back to the old saying by Bobby: you lose big, and then you learn to lose small, and then you learn to win small, and then you learn to win big. They're in that phase 2 right now. They're losing small, right? They've lost 4 games by 1 score. You can argue whether those games were actually as close as the score. That's fine. But do the situations they've been put in, do they learn from that, and next year turn those games, you win some of those 1-score games, which means, because we saw that, right? 2021, this team, the 2020, they lost big. 2021, they lost small. 2022, they started to win those 1-score games. And then 2023, they blew people out. If you were supporting Mike Norvell, that's what you could point to, is they are on that same trajectory we saw 2020 through 2023, which means next year could be a lot like a 2022 where you win 9 or 10 ball games and then you are ready to compete in 2027. I don't know if I believe it, but I can see how you could paint that picture.
So on that, I mean, do we think that Bowden quote, which I think was very prescient at the time, do we think that still applies in this era? And I'm not talking about just the Cignetti stuff. Like I think people were like, "Oh, Cignetti has put all these pressure on these other coaches." That I think that's probably unrealistic. Like he imported the team from JMU, and then they also like did a great job of scouting. Like they probably have a nice blend of like scouting and luck. You know, much like Florida State. Like I think Florida State scouts the portal pretty well overall. Actually, like if you look at their total track record, they're not bad at that at all. But like, you know, I don't think the quote applies much anymore. If you take Deuce off this team. They're not making a bowl game, right?
No, that's fair. That's fair.
And so you don't have anybody on the roster right now who you think is reasonably close to being a number 1 for you next year, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have to go out and portal again, which is possible. But do you think the odds are in your favor of landing another Deuce caliber player?
It is the one position where there's an abundance in the portal. And there was a lot of skepticism outside. Like Deuce was highly rated coming out of high school, but he had yet to show a lot of it on the field, much like Johnny Wilson had not shown it at Arizona State. So I think the odds of having an All-American caliber wide receiver probably aren't good, but I think you can go out and get another guy in this offense that could be first team all-conference. And if you get these other pieces that are young right now to take that next step, I think this team could next year win 8 or 9 games with the right retention pieces and portal pieces. But we also said the same thing in 2024 when they replaced a ton, and all it takes is missing on a couple guys and you can have a disaster.
Yeah.
The variance is much wider now than it ever was.
I agree with that. All right. One thing also that we need to talk about here is legendary team. Chad does a tremendous job with all the home loans, 600 plus now. I think we're closing in on 700. I need to get the updated count so we can actually get some shirts out to folks and get another order of shirts in. 844 FSU loan is that number to call. Rates are dropping right now, which is fantastic. If you need a home, now's a pretty good time to get one. Obviously, I've worked with Chad, a couple times personally, 3 times now, and Graham's used him as well. A bunch of us have, and just first class experience, knows what he's doing. And doesn't seem to have the ups and downs that this program has, unfortunately. But yet, his fandom is certainly not a lot up and down. It's just all go all the times. Even though I know he's taking up these losses and these kind of embarrassing wins at times, just as hard as anybody. So give Chad a call, 844 FSU loan for sure. Chat is Chad asks like, hey, are you going to be able to get another receiver to come here with Tommy throwing the passes? I think possibly because look at the volume Deuce gets, right? Like if you're able to go to somebody and say, hey, you are going to be our guy to catch 60 balls.
Well, that's also the one area they have a proof of concept. Like they do have a success rate of a variety of positions by going to the portal. They can't say that about high school, but they can be like, look, we can help you get to the league if you come from the portal to us. So I don't think they have to probably pay as high a premiums on good talent out of the portal. The hard part is there just isn't as much talent available as there used to be, or that's hidden gems that they were able to find probably in 2021, 2022, right?
Yeah, first, yeah. As far as a perspective that I want to try to paint is, you go into, like, let's say we win a game, we're super happy about it. We next day we have stretch and stride. You're everyone's happy, but in the back of a lot of guys' mind, we're like, this is about to be a film session for your ass. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy we won, but we didn't win in a way that really was great. Coaches are going to be happy we won, but when we sit down and break down this film, it's like, I'm going to enjoy this until Monday, because I'm going to be happy until Monday. Because when we get in that film room, I'm not going to be as happy, because there was so many things that I saw that were just, they weren't good. So it's like, great. I just want to try to paint the picture for some of the people that are viewing in, that like, this is why I'm happy we won. But even as a player, if I'm coming into meetings, I'm still kind of not as happy, to where going into NC State isn't I don't think we're gonna ride as much of a high as people think we are after this win, just because the proof's in the pudding. The eye in the sky does not lie, and when they break that film down, they're gonna see all the mistakes that got made and all those issues there. And if the coaches are doing a halfway decent job, they are not gonna maul over them. They are going to call their asses out and make sure that those things get fixed in order for us to even have a chance versus NC State. So it's like, that's what I'm trying to make sure people understand. That's why I feel the way that I do, is that I am happy for this win, but there's nobody on that roster other than a couple guys that are going to sit here and have a good Monday when it comes down to it.
I think that's totally fair. All right, so what else do we take from this game? Anything? Like any of the young guys that got minimal snaps that y'all were like, all right, yeah, like that's a building block for us?
Saw guys, but I don't know how well they did. I will add this. I was able to, so as a former player, you get to go on the field and stuff like that. So I was able to actually kind of talk with a couple guys that are on the staff and kind of get a little bit of a sense of what's going on internally from a couple guys that I don't really talk to very often, but I hold pretty close. And they're genuinely, they're still very much bought in. Like, and I'm telling you, people that I know do not cut the crap. Like, they will tell me, they'll go around the conversation with the wide eyes and be like, listen, I'm trying. No, like they believe in Norvell. They want to see Norvell succeed. I don't know if it's necessarily drinking the Kool-Aid, but I genuinely think that they think that the process that is being put in place needs more time. They need more time, as well as need some restrictions to be let off as far as the recruiting aspect of things as well. So it's like, across the board, I don't think that I think the team is still bought in. Genuinely.
I mean, they didn't play like they had quit last night or Saturday night. That's encouraging.
No, and I mean, they haven't. We thought they might after the Stanford game, and they actually haven't. I mean, they didn't play great against Clemson, but I feel like they have tried to go. They're not just going through the motions, let's put it that way, and they're not making business decisions. Those are the kind of things you see of a team that would quit, and they're not avoiding contact or anything like that. So you got to give the staff credit for keeping them focused, especially with some of the rumors that came out during the bye week and stuff. It seems like it was more message board bullshit than it actually was a reality. I mean, they're still playing as hard as they can. They are deficient in some areas, and that's just what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, NC State
they're consistent.
I mean, the consistency part on the road certainly scares us. like you got to.
They're consistently bad on the
road. They are consistent on the road. That's one thing that we are consistent on, is on the road. We cannot play. It's a tough one. We'll see this week. Yeah.
I mean, that's where like the buy-in is going to matter, like week to week, right? Like, are you bought in on Monday and Tuesday in practice? In a short week, obviously it's compressed. Like, you need to make sure that you are, you're like, the quarterback for NC State's a hell of a lot better than the quarterback with Tech. And they played, I mean, they were so bad against Miami. Are they just done? Or do you think that they get back up at home to play on a Friday night? They don't want to get embarrassed.
I think it's one of those situations where you're going to have to weather an early storm in the first quarter. They're gonna have energy there, but like we've talked about with this FSU team, if you can put them in an adverse situation early, you could probably flip the game on its head if it goes your way. But the longer you let them hang around, the more that crowd will feed into it and the harder it will become to actually walk out with the W. That's kind of been FSU's problem in a lot of these road games is they get those early opportunities and they don't take advantage of it to take the crowd out of it. And that's what I'll be looking for on Friday night is, can they put NC State in an early hole? And then when they give them the opportunity, will they step on their neck? Or will they let them hang around and then you're in a ball game for 4 quarters?
So just trying to feature the chat a little more when we do go live. So Law TV 13 says, next year, let Sperry go eat with our young wideouts. Boggs, McCoy, Moore, Danzy. Clemson's 5-5 with homegrown talent. Damn near. Why can't we? I mean, I would say Clemson's homegrown talent's better than your homegrown talent. Clemson, like this was also kind of a all-in year for Clemson, and they botched it like pretty bad. Like if you look at who Clemson loses next year, like they're probably in a bit of trouble. I don't know that any of those guys that he just mentioned, like Boggs, I think is a nice piece, but I never really understood.
None of them are a number one.
That's the offseason message board on hype on Boggs did not match anything physical ability wise that he possesses or has ever shown. More like there's nothing like in the laws of physics or like legally wise why he couldn't become a guy. But have we seen anything out of him that says, like I feel really good about him being your number one next year? McCoy, kind of the same thing. Danzy, I think there's a chance Danzy could be a really dangerous number 2 for you, and McCoy and Boggs could develop into like a really useful 3 out of the slot. You also got to find a tight end unless you think one of these young guys is going to emerge, which it's possible. They certainly spend an arm and a leg on tight ends, for sure.
I would rather not see any more tight ends brought in, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah.
At least not at the price tag that they're paying.
But high school tight ends are easy wins, right? Like if you spend up on a high school tight end, that's an easy PR win, right? The media gets excited about it. It's a non-premium position. That's one you can go win by spending, and everybody gets excited about it, right?
I would just rather take that money and buy a defensive lineman in the portal. Like I feel like you could get something more valuable to the team. It wouldn't be sexy, because you're buying a 3-star from a G5 that's trying to come up in level, but I'd still rather do that than buy another. We got too many damn tight ends. Like, it just isn't. Pittman's a great piece, don't get me wrong, but I would much rather, there are more valuable pieces that could contribute to your probability of winning a football game than another tight end.
I think that's fair.
100%.
Something else we talk about here, of course, is our friends at Congruity. Congruity HR Solutions do a great job. Medical insurance, logistics for your business, payroll, whatever you need to make your business optimized, Congruity can certainly help you guys out there. All their contact info, of course, is in the show notes. I think we have like 10 or 11 Nolecast fan businesses who use Congruity right now. Obviously, Graham sent them a ton of business as well. So Congruity is certainly somebody y'all should be checking out. Other stuff from the chat here. I think we've covered stuff like this before on the show, but again, I always kind of think if the chat's asking, like maybe we haven't got it across. Like, how do we fire Taggart in 19 months? Saying 6-6 isn't good enough, but allow 4 of the 6 years of Norvell worse than Taggart. Double standards and privilege. Norvell built this. Yeah, it's an entirely fair point, but the context, of course, is required in that, like, the buyout's huge. You just paid a big buyout with Willie. I think that people are generally more comfortable with things behind the scenes with Norvell than what was going on with Willie. But yet the results are the results, right? You can say, hey, people like working for Mike, and they generally do. I think that's true. You don't see a lot of guys leave his staff for downgrades or lateral moves. But like the results are the results, and he did say it would be a quick turnaround, and yet you lose to Stanford. You have another 3-game losing streak. You're embarrassing on the road. You did beat Alabama, which is a huge piece of this. You were also down a ton to Miami, and like when people started leaving the stadium. So it all kind of factors in. But like ultimately, it's you have an AD who decided to still go all in on all the facility stuff, not really embrace NIL, be a true believer that the salary cap's like a real thing. You're very leveraged on all the facility stuff, and this is a huge buyout number. So you kind of got to have a real plan for that. Not that they won't make a move. I think it's still entirely possible.
Do you think they have made a decision one way or the other? Because a lot of people ask, like, people are adamant he's already fired and they're just playing out the string, and others are like I think it depends on if they make a bowl and how they look in these last 2 football games.
Nobody's told me that. So, I mean, I can't say definitively have not, but nobody's actually told me that. I know that rumor was going around over the weekend, but I think like we all played is like, we'll see. We'll see if they actually do it, you know.
Felt like game of telephone. One person said it and everybody ran with it.
Yeah. I think that's
I
probably fair.
I talked to Alfred over that game as well, and it was funny just talking to him, and he was like, one of the first things he said, he's like, "Did you go see that that facility? Did you go see that players only facility? You got to go take a look at that thing." And I was like, "Listen, I haven't been there yet." And then moving on immediately, the stadium. You seen the stadium, man? We're making all types of upgrades, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really happy about those things. Very happy. Just the impression, just the vibrations that I was feeling talking with him about a couple different things was, I think that letting go of Norvell is a button in a secluded area with a glass over it that if all else fails, we have to flip the switch and press the button. I don't think that is something that is the decision's been made yet. I think that they are going to do every single thing within their power to try to keep this man here for the next couple of years and hope that he can figure it out. And I not only do I feel that from him, but I also felt that from some of the staff, like them genuinely being bought in. I just don't think that the energy in that room has anything to do with anything that is forceful for Norvell. Though he is on the chopping block and he knows that, I think it's all love. I think it's all support. I think it's all, we're in a kumbaya trying to figure this out together. I genuinely do. That's the vibes that I got on that sideline. That's what I got. All the people that I talked to, that's how I felt, and that's what I think is actually happening. We'll see, but that's what I got.
And I think you want them to have that attitude.
I agree.
Because, like, you know, if you talk to the guys on the staff, like, none of them are like, hey, we're screwed. We're just playing out the string.
Yeah.
Even if it does feel like, if you look at this objectively,
that's what it looks like.
It feels basically that's what they're doing,
Yeah.
right? The length of the string is certainly a question here, right? Whether that's through the end of this year or through the end of 2026. But like recruiting's not better.
No.
Like they're not improving in that area. They're not competing for top tier prospects. The approach is not better in recruiting, you know, and that comes from Mike, right? Like you either hold your guys to a standard or you do not, and he doesn't. Like so, but like I'm encouraged that they're not all like, hey, we're screwed. Hey, I'm fully like checked out. Hey, I'm looking for a different job. Now, do I think some of those guys may be able to get out? Yeah, I do. And like, obviously they're talking to their agents, I'm sure. I'm like, hey, this is either this year or next, right? Like we're not close to turning this thing around to where we're meeting the Florida State standard as it should be. So if I can get a soft landing spot elsewhere, you know, that makes sense. Like, I mean, that's probably what Tony did in getting here, right? You get out of Nebraska. He'd done a decent job at Nebraska. Rule's not always the easiest guy to work for. You're losing those 2 defensive tackles you had at Nebraska last year. Getting somewhere else to get a new 3-year deal makes a lot of sense. Now, I don't know how many of those guys could get elsewhere and not take a downgrade, right? But if one of their buddies is getting one of these head coaching jobs that comes open, you get a new couple-year guaranteed assistant contract. That's not the worst thing. But I am glad they're still committed to making it work. Like they're still doing their job until they don't have that job anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's encouraging, you know, if that's not depressing, hopefully, if I said that right, you know, like,
yeah,
it's valuable input for sure. See, how does the administration's confidence change for 2026 if we're replacing one or both coordinators? I don't really know. That's a good question. I think you got to be happy overall, I think, with the job that Gus has done. I don't know how happy Gus is ultimately, but I also don't know what's going to happen with some of these other jobs. Like, does he all of a sudden decide that, hey, I don't like working for somebody. I want to be my own guy. UAB is open as a job. I don't know who they're going to hire there. They kind of have to be on, you know, They have to be on some level like committed to making this thing work, because a lot of them are tied into the success of it. And if it doesn't work, I don't know how well this works long term. Weston in the chat was saying Chuck's trying to use data to justify this being a good team. It's not a good team. I don't think Chuck said that. It's not like, it's not a bottom 50. Like, it's not outside the top 50. It's just not like, you really can't argue me they're top 20.
No. But I don't think it's crazy to suggest they're in the 30 to 40 range either.
No, like they're,
and that's all I've said.
right. Like they're top half of the P4. Now, I think it's pretty disingenuous to argue they're not, I guess. The ACC kind of sucks this year. They have not faced all the bad ACC teams.
But we also have seen that their ceiling is good enough to be a team that's going to be in the playoffs. So, like, when you know that fact, it's hard to say they're an awful football team. People want to act like this is some 2-8 or 3-7 football team. They're just not. Like, they're not good enough, but they're also not. They aren't Stanford or Oklahoma State or any of these other bottom feeders in the P4, even though they did lose to one of them.
Right. Whew, okay, we're about 30 minutes here. Anything else we need to hit on this? I feel like there's not a ton to say on this thing. I will say, I had some people who went to Charlie Park over the weekend, absolutely loved it. So it was good to get the feedback there. So it was just like a total vibe. That's a 40-year-old guy saying total vibe. What am I doing? Anyway, that's kind of how they described it. So that was awesome. Obviously, Matt, so still rocking and crushing it. Anybody who goes to Tally knows like that's the spot to hit. If you want to skip the line, they do have the cool like the line skipper feature there, where you can actually like buy your ticket for game day early and like walk right in, which is fantastic because the line for that place does get pretty long. I think it increases your chance of getting a table, like very much so. So pretty awesome situation there. Shout out to women's soccer for making the second round of the Natty playoffs. And we don't talk a ton of hoops on this show, but I think I'm like very excited to watch this team. Yeah. They're an exciting brand of basketball. Mm-hmm. Rebounding is an issue at times, but like for you,
also they're undersized too, though.
Yeah. I mean, like you're 18-point dogs in Gainesville. Ford is probably the favorite to repeat. If not, they're on the short list. Mm-hmm. And you play them to 2 points. Like that was an effort. They played hard. They played their game. I think the way they play is exciting. Like it's a very NBA style game. And I think ham teams were good to root for in that, like you had pride that those guys would play hard for you, but it was not like a visually pleasing brand of basketball off a touch, right? It was, kind of the style you could only get behind if it was your team,
Mm-hmm.
So
I think they're taking advantage of their athleticism. I've always wanted to see them play a more up-tempo style, like North Carolina's run and gun type of stuff. So letting them get out in the open floor and play fast and fire up shots and try to have as many possessions as possible is fun.
Yeah.
I also want to go back to this, not this. People saying like we bought 2 wins, 3 and 5 complete. Guys, every team out there has 2 gimme wins. I think this idea, I hear this a lot. Like, people email the show, they hit us on patreon.com/Nolecast. Hey, like these 2 wins don't count. Find me a team out there that doesn't have 2 automatic wins in the non-con. Mm-hmm. Not many.
Also, we've lost gimme games. Like that is it's
he lost a bye game against Memphis just last year, and he lost one to Jack State in 2021. So like we can't take anything for granted with this staff.
You can't.
Yeah. Are we
take them for sure?
Chat's live today. Are we delusional? We can't lose to Stanford and claim we are better or above them. Well, like can Bama claim they're better or above you? Right? Like it's one data point. It's a really bad one. It's one that I think you should be fired over, to be honest, because like you're consistently showing you do not have the team ready to play. And I kind of hate the not ready to play every week thing, because I don't think anybody has their team super ready to play every single week, but it's just far too often. It's the frequency with which you look unprepared to play. I think which is over a larger sample set is pretty damning. Stanford is standing out amongst there, but like you can't use just the Stanford loss, right? It's the fact that UVA is kind of shitty and you lost to them, right? And Pitt, like Notre Dame's a real team. Notre Dame spends like you do in NIL, and they destroyed Pitt. Like they destroyed Pitt and played kind of sloppy in doing so and could have won by 40 in Pitt's house. You lost to Pitt at home to a true freshman quarterback making his first start on the road. and Pitt's wins this year are against garbage teams. Like that loss looks worse and worse each week, I think, honestly. So I don't think we're making excuses at all. Like I don't know. I still think they should make a change, and might. But
yeah, I mean, if I had my way, I would have fired him after last year. And I don't think he should be retained. But all I'm trying to illustrate is why or how the admin could paint it that bringing him back next year is in the best interest of the program. Whether you agree with that, it's up to you. But like, they have shown improvement year over year. Of course, it's not hard to improve from 2-10, but they aren't as bad as people make them out to be, but they're not as good as they should be in year 6. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah. And if they can take the picture, they're going to be able to get renewals. And it's a business. That's what it is. And if you can paint the picture, just like Chuck just said, like that's really what you want to do, is paint the picture. And if Norvell can figure out a way to get this picture painted better, they're going to do it. So that's really what it's about. Unfortunately,
the market is not friendly right now. It just isn't. People need to accept that.
Do you think that the thought that like we can't do it because like the market is so tight implies sort of like a concerning thought process on the administration's behalf? Like we have to go out and hire like a real high profile guy at top dollar. Like are they ignoring what A&M did with Elko? A&M paid Elko like $6.5 million to come in there, right? Like you don't have to go pay insane money to get somebody to come to Florida State.
I think the problem is we don't have Elko's a unique situation because he was at A&M prior, right? So it's hard to use him as a good example because he knew what he was walking into. So he might have been willing to take less than he could have got if he went from Duke to, I don't know, throw some LSU, right? Because he didn't have intimate knowledge of that roster. He isn't that far removed from his time in College Station. So he knew what Jimbo had built and failed to properly use to get the results. So it's hard to use Elko as a direct analogy. But I do think it is concerning that there is a belief you have to go spend $12 or $13 million on a coach. There's nothing in the history of hiring college football coaches that guarantees you're going to get this result if you pay this amount or get this profile of a name. But also there's a lot of concern, I think, to go get another G5 guy. Like there aren't a ton of great options at the G5 level that you could probably spend on a cheap amount. For lack of a better word. Summerall has his own issues, as great as he looks as a candidate to a lot of people. Chesney has no association to the South. Do you really want a New England guy trying to run a program down in the Southeast? Who are you going to get, right?
So, I mean, all right, agreed. But Indiana's guy was a G5 guy. Bama's guy.
Indiana doesn't play 5 brand names a year like FSU, though.
Totally fair.
And are we going to get whatever this G5 guy is to bring 17 of his starters with him? That's the other thing that has benefited Indiana.
Probably not. You're right. Okay. So Ohio State was a coordinator, internal hire though, right? Mm-hmm. So you did get that. A&M was a guy that came from Duke, Oregon was a coordinator. Mm-hmm. Georgia Tech was a coordinator. I'm just going through my current projected playoff list. Texas Tech was a non-coordinator who had never been a head coach before, literally just an assistant at Baylor. Kalani Sitake was a coordinator, right? Defense coordinator, I believe. Mm-hmm. Lane Kiffin came from FAU, had failed miserably as a head coach at the P5 level, fired twice from Tennessee and USC. Notre Dame was a coordinator. Georgia was a coordinator. Oklahoma, coordinator.
But most of those were internal of some sort or had intimate ties to, like, especially the coordinator ones, right? Because, Ryan Day was Urban Meyer's offense coordinator. Kirby played at the University of Georgia.
Yeah.
So, like, some of those, it's hard to be directly
To sell it,
applicable
you
to
mean?
that. Like even Jimbo taking over here, he had already laid a lot of the groundwork before he took over as head coach in 2010. So as much as I'm in favor of going the coordinator route, you have to admit that a lot of those situations are very unique. And Marcus Freeman was the defense coordinator for Brian Kelly, and Brian Kelly left, so they promoted him up. Like, we aren't in that situation, and I can tell you I would not be excited if they promoted either of the coordinators to head coach right now.
Oh, God, no. No,
But I want that on record.
I agree. Although, like, do we know Tony White wouldn't do better than Mike? Not really. I mean, I think it's almost certain that he would overall. Like, just if you played the law average, I would think. My point here is, like, none of these were really seen as home runs.
I think the home run's a message board myth, though. For the most part, the vast majority of hires
by the administration. Like, that's what I worry about. Like, is this administration kind of that Scott Woodward LSU approach, who's now
wanting to win the press conference type of thing? Yeah,
like we have to, like, it kind of, it's like, are they ahead of the game? Are they looking at this in a smart analytical way, or are they kind of, like, some of the things they do makes me a little scared about this, to be honest, right? Like, like we talked about this before, Keith Carter, they were in the middle of stadium plans at Ole Miss, and he said, nah, most important thing's product on the field. Let's dump more of this money into NIL. If we win, people will come. Right now,
I think my concern, though, is because I've heard that thought kicked around with FSU, dump more money in NIL. I have concerns with the way they spend the NIL already.
I agree. But
so,
like overall, the approach, are they looking at this in a smart way? Like, do you really have confidence that they're going to? Is the way they look at this restrictive to their decision to move on from Mike?
Yeah. So, like, do you keep Mike if you have to then experiment? So if we have to experiment and pull somebody up, are we in a better situation? Even if they like Mike, they're bought into what Mike is the possibilities of what he can do. Do we go out and experiment again, or do we have to go spend some serious money? Regardless if it's the money that we're talking as far as high as this 12 million or whatever it is, but like, if we have to go spend some serious money and then the market is also not all that great, it's like, at least in their mind, it seems like we just keep Norvell. Like, we just keep him. Like, there's no reason for us to go back out and try and do that. If we have to, we go big or we go home. That's what it feels like.
I think the problem is the word have. Like, do we have to? If the administration thinks that you have to, then that informs their dragging their feet on this a little bit.
Yeah. I
don't think you have to. Like, I don't think their ability to predict who's going to be the good coach or not is any better than anybody else's.
Yeah, do I.
I don't think I can really predict who a good coach is going to be. If you look at it, like.
But I've heard you explain this on Cover 3, and I think this is applicable here. You have to make a hire that's going to get the money people excited, don't you?
This is part of the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why they're probably thinking we have to go get a James Franklin or a Lane Kiffin or somebody who's at least somewhat proven. And then you have to spend the money that goes with it, because that's the only way the money people are going to be willing to pony up to get rid of Norvell and pay what's necessary to bring in that next staff. So you're kind of stuck. If you are going to fire him, you can't just go get, well, we have a good feeling this guy can get good down the road. That's probably not going to excite people who are writing those checks.
Yeah.
And that's where they're kind of stuck, unfortunately. Because ultimately, that you are beholden to the people who stroke the pen. If they don't want to write the check, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's not like FSU can on its own fund this buyout. Like, they're going to need the money people to do it, and they're going to need the money people to go get somebody else. And it's not going to be cheap, like, to go get what's necessary. It's just not. I mean, you're going to have to probably buy, unless you sign Franklin, you're going to have to buy somebody out of a contract at this point.
Right.
And
especially if you don't want to go G5 route, which again, I think is, I think that's really bad process, man. Honestly, almost all these G5 guys have worked at a major P5.
Yeah, but there's such a bad track record for G5s going to these major programs. The 18 you have identified as the ones who can legitimate. The history of a G5 at those 18 programs is not very good.
Do you go coordinator?
I think if you're going to do it, that's what you would rather do. And you get a Brian Hartline, a Will Stein, a Glenn Schumann, who have been there and seen the inner workings of how those programs succeed. I think if you're going to do it, that should be the avenue you go, unless you're going to get a proven commodity.
Yeah. I know this sounds so weird, and I don't have to fundraise it off it. So, like, that's the disconnect. But, like, I'm not that worried about who they hire. I think odds are, like, you have good bones of this program. You're likely to have success. Are you likely to win a national title? Nobody really is, right? In any program out there, like, there's one a year. It's hard. But I think, like, if you're doing a competent job, you're better than this.
Mm-hmm.
But awesome. All right. See you guys for the NC State preview.
Sounds good.
All right. Peace, y'all.
Go Noles.
Go Noles.